Hi everyone, welcome back to Harshi. In today's video, we're going to understand assemblies in .NET and also the difference between DLL and EXE files. In the previous video, we saw how our C# code gets converted into intermediate language and then executed using CLR and JIT, right? But if you think about it, where is this IL code actually stored? And what are these .exe and DLL files we see after building the project? And what actually runs when we execute .NET application. So all of this comes down to one important concept, assemblies. So in this video, let's break it down step by step and understand what assemblies are, how they work, and the difference between DLL and EXE. So let's start with few basic questions. So when we build a .NET application, where is this IL code actually stored? And what are this .exe and .dll files that we see? And what really runs inside .NET Runtime. Now, all these questions have one simple answer, assemblies. Okay, so these assemblies are the fundamental units of execution and deployment in .NET. Okay, means they package everything together like your code along with metadata and other required resources into a single unit. And this is what actually gets loaded and executed by the CLR. Now, let's understand what exactly an assembly is. So we just saw that when we build our project, everything gets packaged into an assembly, right? But what does it actually include? An assembly is basically the compiled output of your code. But along with that, it also contains all the information required for execution. Means inside it, you'll have the IL code, which represents the program logic, and the metadata, which gives details about classes, methods, and properties. So instead of having things scattered, everything is neatly organized into a single unit. And because of this, the CLR can easily load and execute it. So you can think it of an assembly as a complete and organized package of your application, which makes execution and management much easier. Okay. Now, in .NET, we mainly have two types of assemblies. Okay, let's start with the first one, EXE, executable. So, EXE is something you might already familiar with. It is the file that can run directly. Okay, so it has an entry point, usually the main method, which is where the program starts. Okay, so when you run an EXE, it actually starts the application and creates its own process, and you'll see this in things like console apps or Windows applications. Okay, so in simple terms, EXE is your main application. Okay, now let's talk about DLL, Dynamic Link Library. DLL is bit different, means it cannot run on its own. Okay, it doesn't have main method or entry point. Instead, it's used to store reusable code. So the other application can reference this DLL and use the functionality inside it. For example, if you have some common logic, you can put it inside this DLL and you can reuse it in multiple applications. Okay, so you can think of this DLL as a helper or support library. So a simple way to remember this is EXE is the main program that runs, and DLL supports the program by providing functionality. Now, let's clearly understand the difference between EXE and DLL. Okay, an EXE is something that can run independently. It starts the execution of application and it creates its own process. So basically, it is responsible for running the program. On the other hand, DLL does not run on its own. It is used within an application and provides reusable functionality. So instead of starting execution, it supports our application by providing additional logic. Okay, so the key idea here is EXE start the application and DLL support the application. And while EXE creates a process, DLL runs inside the process as a part of the application. Okay, now let's see what is actually inside an assembly. An assembly is not just a single piece, it contains few important components that makes execution possible. There are mainly three things inside an assembly. First is the IL code. Okay, this is the compiled version of your program and it is platform independent. Later, during execution, JIT converts this IL code into machine code. Okay. Next is metadata. This contains information about your code like classes, methods, properties. So because of this, .NET understand how your code is structured, and this is what enables features like intelligence and reflection. Okay. And finally, we have manifest. This contains details about the assembly itself, such as version information, dependencies, security related details. So basically, it describes everything about assembly. Okay. So overall, it contains IL code, metadata, and manifest. Okay. Now, you might be wondering, why do we actually need assemblies? There are few important reasons for that. First is code reusability. We can create functionality once in a DLL and then we can reuse it across multiple projects. Okay, so instead of writing the same code again and again, we can simply reference the assembly and use it. Okay, next is easy deployment. Since everything is packaged into assemblies, we can deploy application as a single unit. Means all the required code and information are already bundled together, which makes the deployment much simpler. Okay. Another advantage is versioning. So, assemblies allows us to manage different versions easily. So, even if we update one part of the application, it won't break the other part that dependent on it. Okay. And finally, better structure. So, assemblies help us to organize code into smaller logical units. Okay. So, this makes the application easier to maintain and also improves readability. So, overall, assemblies help in making application reusable, easy to manage, and well structured. Okay, let's quickly go through the complete flow once again. We start by writing our code in C sharp. Okay, then the compiler converts it into intermediate language. Then this IL code is stored inside an assembly, which can be .exe or .dll files. Okay. After that, the CLR loads the assembly and manages the execution. Then the JIT compiler converts this IL code into machine code. And finally, the program runs and will get the output. Okay. So this is how assemblies work in .NET. So they act as a core unit that packages your code and make execution possible. And once you understand the difference between EXE and DLL, it becomes much easier to understand how .NET applications are structured. Okay, and that's all for this video. I hope this made the concept of assemblies clear and easy to understand. If you found this helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe to Harshi Learn. And I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep learning and have a great day.